Oh, it's live.
Live.
Hi, guys.
Hello,
This is
Danielle
and 2D
Moreland.
Moreland.
And we are excited to actually have our first live broadcast. I know
Yeah.
there's probably at least 12 viewers out there. And we just want to share with you that maybe going through the difficulties of being in a relationship where you are so different. And it's pretty obvious what we're talking
We are
about.
different. Oh
But
my
I mean,
gosh.
we love each other. We're not thinking about, oh, we're so different all the time because we're in love. Everything's fine with us or with that. But we do find times we're out and about and people are just baffled. You get some of the funniest looks, and people who you thought were cool, suddenly you're not so sure about them because they're giving you this strange look like, what's wrong with you, or something, because they're passing judgment on the appearance of your spouse. And here you're seeing them in love, acceptance, unity, everything is fine with us. But then there's people that just it's too much for them.
Yeah.
They don't know what to think about it. Sometimes they're just puzzled. They're not like angry or whatever. They're just like, what? Like,
How can this
um,
be?
uh, yeah,
Yeah.
it blows their world. They just
Yeah, I remember that time we were in church. We left. We had church was over. It was done, and we
church.
church.
Yeah, I love it. I love her accent.
Yeah, so church was over, and we both went to the restroom, and we were meeting each other, at the foyer where we have coffee and stuff. And there's this guy. I don't know if he was in a wheelchair, or he was just walking. I don't know. But this guy had his mouth wide. His jaw was like like
Yeah.
no joke.
Literally, I've
Yeah.
seen that before.
And I was like, I held it together until I walked to him, and then I was like, babe, did you see that guy? He was like so baffled to see two different people together. So
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like for me, I have gotten to that point where I just kind of zone it all out. Like when I'm walking, I kind of just don't look at people. I kind of just glaze over.
Yeah.
Because if you look and see somebody, giving you a bad look or something, then it disturbs you. It spoils a whole date or whatever. So then, yeah, I just stopped.
Yeah. Well, that's how she does it. But I like make them feel uncomfortable about their problem with us because it's not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's theirs.
Yeah.
I'll just smile even bigger. I'm like, yeah, like, oh yeah, like,
Yeah.
yep. I mean,
Get together.
yeah, because there's guys that, for whatever reason, and I don't even know these people. They're just passing by, whatever. I don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for what reason they would have this awful scalp. You mean just pinched or shaking their head or something like what's your problem, man?
Mm-hmm.
I got no problem. I am blessed, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
I want my kids to understand the whole world is nothing if it has not love. And love is what builds society and what keeps us together. We're all human and we all need love. No child has made it through life without some love in their life to help them along and
Sorry, if you see me looking on this side, I'm sharing on our Instagram. By the way, if you don't know, we have our Instagram page. It's called the Morelands 2020 because apparently there are so many other Morelands.
Yeah.
So 2020 makes us
big.
distinct. Makes us distinct because that's when we got married. So how did we meet?
This is a good question.
Yeah.
We want to really answer that question. It was a long time coming before I was prepared to accept that maybe I should be married instead of single. I really kind of gave up on the whole idea for many years. And I mean, I just wanted to serve God. I was just like, hey, you know what? I survived a relationship that I was just so grateful to get out of, that I was just thankful. Like, God, I was a mess. Like, I don't ever want to have some kind of problem like that. And I would, and for you guys that are like not religious, when you come to faith, you want to learn more about it because you experience it before you understand everything about it. You just know that you have faith and you trust God and you're thankful for things. It's kind of funny how it starts out and then grows. But I started growing into, and learning, studying theology. Like, what do we know about
Mm-hmm.
God? Why does everyone talk about God? What, and you have to study because it is a science, and you don't just automatically understand everything about a science. There's so much to it, and many people have proven him over and over. And there's so much testimonial all over. God is real. He is alive and well. He is doing many things in millions and billions of people's lives
Mm-hmm.
all over all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. It's kind of disturbing to think people that do like science, they think that somehow it opposes God. No, theology is the greatest science because it shows the actuality of God's personality involving everyone who will accept him in their heart. And you have to stop being ignorant to accept him.
Yeah.
Once you stop ignoring that he's all around you and he is permeating your life through people all over,
Mm-hmm.
you can start to study and find for yourself
Mm-hmm.
that he intimately loves you and has guided you already before you knew it and is opening doors for you to walk through. And I started accepting that, like I finally, it's like God had broken me down to a point where I could finally pray to him honestly. And I just prayed like, okay, God, I really don't want to be alone all the time. I don't just want to be alone. I do want to have a wife. I just know that if I choose her, it won't be the best because I just don't make the best choices. And so I feel like I need your help. I want to know that it is the best choice. Um, it began a time. I'm going to shorten this up
Yes.
for
It's
the
already
time.
7 minutes.
You all get to know me. I'll give you the long version, but for y'all that are watching, thank you for watching.
Oh,
By the
hi,
way,
Sequoia. Thank you.
I want to share that when I stopped thinking I have to be single to serve God, that's the way it's got to be. That's what the Bible says. It's better that and it does say that it's better to serve um, alone because then you don't have the concern of a wife and whatever. But I was honestly miserable being alone, and I finally, asked God about this. If He would guide me, that'd be great. And even telling Him this and the way that he guided me to duty was amazing. I was trying to serve God in a ministry that's local here in Seattle area. That's a mission that reaches out to people that are without homes and in need and stuff. And she happened to be serving that same mission, working as a caretaker. What do they
Well,
call it?
I was working as a guest services associate, and I'm telling you guys, um, I'll go back to like maybe the background work of what God was doing was when I came to the US in 2015. I was coming fresh from a church that was very like very strong in their faith, and they were always about fasting and all that. So at that time, they were doing a 40-day fast, and I was like, oh God, I can't do all that. But I still fasted, and in that time God spoke to me, and he just kind of, it was like a little imprint in my spirit, and he said, you know homeless, like homeless, that's what he said, like. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe God wants me to work with the homeless. But that was when I was pretty new in the country, and I had no idea that there were actually homeless people in the United States. Because back home, you just think that the US is like all fine and dandy, everybody is super rich, everybody has like this amazing life. So that was when I got that impression of the Holy Spirit. That was maybe 2016. And fast forward 2018, that's when I started working at a homeless shelter, where then that's where we met, because
Yeah.
he was volunteering and I was working there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny. In 2016, I was actually uh, you know, I finished going through the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University, which is it takes principles from the Bible to show you that if you trust God with your finances, like you do the very breath in your lungs and everything else that's in the planet that is being blessed, to the harvest, to the sun rising up. I mean, it all really is in His hands. Technically, you really can't do anything without Him. So, um, funny thing is, I went through that, and it grew my faith. I started trusting Him everything, and it worked. I had to go through that to realize, you know what? It's not even my money anyway. It's just something God has allowed me to have in my hands for a short period of time. What am I doing with it? I started seeing I could do better with it, and praying about like getting a better job, because it just I looked at my finances way closer and thought, just I'm just not getting paid enough. I should be getting paid more. I could easily get better, and uh, I'm typing in things, and they're getting the thing they'd never seen before in the computer, and it was saying like pay increase something or other. It was so funny. They were like, "What does that mean?" And I'm like, "Oh Lord."
So wait, who is this?
So I lost my job because they had to lay me off.
Okay.
And so yeah, I'm gonna try to sum the story
Okay,
up. This
okay.
was an engineering place that I worked at.
Okay.
Not a very big thing, but I enjoyed it. It was sad to lose it, but for once, I did not have any worry. I just had faith. I knew God had bigger plans. The funny thing was the day, I think it was the actual night or the day after or whatever it was, I got back from being laid off. They're good people. They just had to because of the way that the company was set up. Like they had to so that they could keep afloat. And I understood. Very cool people. And but here I was, no job. And what happened was that my friend from church called me up right after this and said, "Hey, we're putting together a group of people to go on a mission trip to Africa. I wondered if you wanted to come over and talk to me about it." And I'm like, "Yeah, sign me up."
That was
like,
in 2016.
That was in 2016, okay. And so we made the plan to come over for 2017 for the mission. And I'm like studying Swahili. I'm all ready to go. We went to a place in Kenya. It turns out it was a place in her hometown.
Yeah.
And, I'm checking out all these places. And I find out that Kenya is powerfully faithful. Not just a little bit. Like they are powerfully faithful. They stand on the promises of God. They preach like everywhere. It's like nobody there does not know the gospel virtually anywhere. It's like 80+% Christian peoples, and it shows. People are happy even in all kinds of circumstances. There's many different levels of lifestyles there. But even places where they are quote unquote these big slums, the people are still there and busy doing things to support themselves, and they're like actively living out their lives, doing their thing in their own styles and fashion, and happily doing their thing. And I'm like, how come these people are all happy even when they're quote unquote in need of help? And it's like, here people where I'm from got all kinds of wealth and everything, and they're not happy at all most of the time. And they have like serious, actual like woes, like real problems, like mental dysfunction and all kinds of problems. And it's like, what the heck? It really opened my eyes to what the kingdom of God is and how very little worldly wealth actually is worth. Sadly, there are people that have very little out there, but they have enough, and they're 100% happy. It kind of blows you away to think of it. Like there are people with wealth, and they're more worried than anyone else, and because that's what they're clutching onto, and it cannot last, and that worries them because the truth is it is not a stable foundation to build on. I'm going over.
Yes. So anyway, in 2016, you were in Kenya.
No, in 2017. Yeah, in 16. Yeah, I planned for it.
In 2017, you went to Kenya.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we met in 2018. Apparently, Daniel had met me before the day that I remember we met. What do you remember? Like, when do you remember we met first?
I remember trying to remember her name. Like, I'm like, oh Lord, what was her name? It was amazing. I don't know, Guinevere or Gwyneth. It started with a G. It's Gertrude was her name, and but the thing is, when I saw her, and she was so sweet. I just happened to be one of the stops we had with that organization was where they had a place where the ladies that needed a place to stay were
Mhm.
at. And we would give them stuff that we had for care, and I had to use the restroom. Hey, I'm wondering where. And she was just so sweet. Hey, right this way, and she had this beautiful spirit. And I mean, if you start understanding spiritual understanding, like when you see what something really is or who somebody really is, it's not just their appearance, it's how they carry themselves, how they respond, how who they are.
Mhm.
And she was the most beautiful. And
Uh-huh.
I was astonished. Like I could not tell how old she was. That was one thing. I couldn't tell. I
See,
was like,
now
she can't be
I
as
don't.
young as she looks because she's like in charge of people here. She like knew what was going on and she was like, oh yeah, so right this way. She was very, you could tell she was educated. She was, very confident. And I was like, okay, this person is clearly an adult and everything, but I couldn't tell.
How old I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, many people. Okay, when I was in Kenya, people used to be like, "Oh, are you, 18, 19?" Which was like, it wasn't too far off. It was maybe 2, 3 years off. But when I came to the US, oh my gosh, people would think I'm 15, and that time I'm 21. So I can see why you had that problem. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's that's the first time we met, but I do not remember that. Maybe
Well,
vaguely.
no, she remember. I know because I remember one thing she's told me, but when I said, like habari samchana or something,
Okay,
right?
no, babe,
Or habari
that was
aku.
a different time. So when
Maybe
I
we're not thinking at the same time, but I remember one time when I saw her, I knew I'd seen her, and I said hello in Swahili.
so okay, I'll tell the version of this of what I
Her version.
remember. So that first time you're saying that I showed you the restroom.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
You remember that?
But you said we met in the bigger church that had the met
The
the
metal tower. Yeah,
yeah, that's where you think we met first.
pretty sure.
So I know that's not where we met first. Well,
Oh, it was
according to
before that
me,
time that I said hello. Then,
I don't know. So anyway, me, I'll say what I remember.
huh?
What I remember is it was in 2018. It was in winter, and he had come with some other group um to volunteer at the shelter, and I was working as always. So you were with some other guy, and then the guy was talk. I don't know. I was talking, and then the guy was like, "Oh, you have an accent. Where are you from?"
Oh, that was much later than the first time I saw you.
Yeah, and I let me tell you, that's like the worst thing to say to somebody. I think
Oh, right.
it's rude. It's like, okay, so
It's like
what if I
asking,
have
why
an
do you talk
accent?
so bad or
I like,
something?
why
It's
do
like,
you
what?
take, not so bad, but like, why do you talk different from,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it makes you think there's something wrong with that. Why?
Yeah. So, oops,
So we've
that's
been
already almost 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
So,
So anyway, so I remember the guy said, "Oh, you have an accent. Where you from?" I said, "I'm from Kenya." He said, "Oh, you speak very good English." Again, another thing.
and she's like,
I'm
oh,
like,
God.
"Oh my
It's
gosh,
because
this
they
is
speak English in
yeah, like right
Kenya.
from when we're in kindergarten, because that's our, official language of communication. Just because somebody has an accent doesn't mean that they do not know English, but whatever. So I was already getting tired of that whole conversation. Then Daniel was like, "Oh, you're from Kenya." He told me that whole story about how he had been to Kenya already, and that's when you said habari za mchana, and that means, so it was nighttime. Daniel said habari za mchana, which means good afternoon. But I didn't hear what you said. I asked you like 3 times, like, what did you say? And then I'm like, oh, you speak Swahili. And then you told me like, yeah, you had been learning Swahili and stuff. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
He told me he had been, yeah,
it was funny.
he had been learning Swahili. And so then I was really excited about that. And then I think I started talking about how I don't really go around, I'm not really one to travel around. And so he said, "Have you been around Seattle?" I'm like, "Yeah, but not really too much, because Seattle is not the capital of Washington, but it's one of the big cities, and it's famous, right? Like people like to go there." And I was like, "No, I mean, I haven't really been there."
And I said, "Well, I'll take you anytime you want."
And I was like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah, and like here, I didn't get her digits.
So
And we both have phones, and I didn't ask for a
he did not
number.
ask for my number. So
But what I thought, I thought instead of just being straight up, like, "Hey, let me get your number," I didn't want her to think I'm like, too forward. I even said something like that.
Yeah.
And because I asked her to come to my church, like, "Oh, well, there's a guy at my church that speaks Swahili.
So
This
then
will be fun." And I asked her on a first date would be come
at
to
the
my
church.
church. We'll go have lunch afterward with this guy that speaks Swahili, and y'all will get along. It'll be fun.
So you're trying to set me up with another Kenyan brother?
No, he's an elder.
Oh,
An elder.
okay.
Very respected elder that speaks
back.
Swahili. So it was funny because she was like, "Oh, he's just being polite."
So okay.
So I'm looking at the door of my church
no, don't skip.
for weeks and
Don't
weeks,
skip.
going, "Where is she? Oh,
Listen,
Lord."
listen. The thing is, Daniel, he told me to come to his church, right? He did not ask for my number.
No.
Then he said, "Oh, if you come to my church, I'm going to notice you or something." And then I was like, "Oh, why? Because I'm gonna be the only black person there." And he's like, "No, because you'll be the most beautiful woman." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Then you said before you said that statement, you said not to be too forward, but because you'll be the most beautiful woman.
Yeah.
So
because I'm trying to be polite.
As the vibe
I
is
wasn't
getting,
just like, "Hey, baby," I was being polite. Okay.
So I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is so smooth." As in, I liked the whole conversation. But then the guy that was in charge of the volunteers came out and said, "Hey, it's time to go." I'm thinking, "Oh man, okay."
And we were just getting along.
And we're getting along really well.
We were having fun talking about everything.
Yeah. But then as I was walking back to actually, babe, I think I've told you this before. When I went back to my shift, I spent like some good amount of time checking out what does it mean not to be too forward. And it said like, "Oh, I'm not trying to make any moves on you." So when I found that that's what it meant, I was like, "Oh, he was just being polite." And we didn't see each other for like months, maybe 3 months after that. And I remember
the springtime.
Yeah, but I remember being on Facebook, and I found like some guy who I knew was working in the organization. I found his profile, and then you were a mutual friend, and I was like, "Oh, look, who do we have here?"
Yeah, why don't we be friends? And I can tell you, I was happy to have Facebook that day because I really thought she was great.
Yeah,
and
supermodel.
And I'm already like praying about it a lot because I was thinking, "Oh Lord, is she gonna come? Does she really care about your church? Does she want to come to my church?" Turns out she checked out my church online, and the website was like whack. And she was like, "What a weird church." She thought it was weird. I was like,
going to that church.
I thought it was a fun church. They had good music. People were good, but
to my defense, when I finally did show up at the church, it was really nice, and I still love your church, and the people there were so nice. But sometimes when you read things online, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know, about these people." But anyway, so I go on Facebook, I send him a request, he accepts it, and then we start chatting. And he was like, "Hey, you never." So I said, "Hey, you never. Hey, you never." We never did go around to Seattle. And then he was like, "Well, you never came to my church." And then the conversation went from there. And I think we spoke about going on a date in Seattle.
And by then we became friends on Facebook, and we're like messaging each other and texting, and it was like, always like when you hear that sound of your text coming back, you're like, "Oh, what did they say?" And you're like, "Oh, what?" And here my boy at work, who was like all strong in prayer, was like, "Oh Lord, just bless this whole thing," and like really was encouraging me a lot. I'm glad that I got to meet
Your
that
friend.
friend there.
Yeah.
His name was Jeff, really cool guy that helped me to understand a little bit. And it was interesting because I felt more comfortable with her partially because she understood about, I don't know, I guess you may say like about race and what it's like to have, not everybody looks at you for who you are. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people just look at you and they just see your exterior and they don't know you and they make it the prejudice. And I dealt with that a lot in my life. And I'm not just saying only because of the skin color I have, but just in general. Like I understood that. I had good friends that were African in school, and I remember being ridiculed because I was hanging out with them or something, and I was like, "That's stupid. Like, why? Nobody chooses their race. It's just something they are. What do you? Why would you be against it? It doesn't make sense. I still don't understand
Yeah.
racism. It doesn't make sense to me. I think
Yeah.
it's like a disease. Like, no, they just don't understand is what is a problem. It shouldn't be like that. If they really knew somebody, they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be looking at that. They would be looking at who they are and what they're about.
And I'll say, like, for myself, like, I never saw myself ever dating outside of my Kenyan culture.
Mm.
Ever. Ever.
Ever, ever,
Ever.
ever.
Ever. Okay, you get the
And
point.
well, I gotta be honest. I had thought about it because I just didn't see any problem with it. I thought there's nothing wrong with that, and I had gone to Kenya and thought, um, you know, God is. I mean, is this what your plan is? Is there something like that for me? I have no idea.
Oh, and you should. What he
I'm
didn't say.
started being humbled to the
Yeah.
point where I was able to be ready for a relationship.
Yeah. And what he didn't share was that when he was in Kenya and was visiting there, these people were like, "Oh, you're gonna get married to like a Kenyan,
Yeah,
right?"
yeah, they said things like this,
Yeah.
and I mean, okay, when people are praying for you, that's one thing. When people are like prophesying, they're saying like it's gonna be like this, and
Mm-hmm.
they're using their faith, but in a statement and giving you blessing. They're saying it over you. Oh, you're going to be blessed in this way or that way. And so the thing was, they were saying things like even specific things. I remember, I think they even said something like, she's going to be a beauty contestant or something. I'm not even
I.
joking. I remember somebody giving them a reaction like, "What are you talking about? Like, are you serious? Or were you gonna give her like how tall she is too?" Like they're looking at him like, "What are you saying?" They're like, "I'm just saying this is what I feel like." I'm like, "Wow,
Mm.
thanks you guys for praying for me." I mean, they're like, "Yeah, you have you should have an African wife for real." I was like,
Oh, really?
"Okay," and so. I mean,
Oh, and something to add. Sorry for cutting you
oh,
short.
please.
So it's so funny, like how I was saying that I never saw myself dating outside of my culture. But actually, my own mom, one day, out of
Oh,
like the blue,
yeah.
I was like cleaning the utensils or something, and she was sitting on a chair, and just randomly, she was like, "I think you're gonna get married to a white guy," and I was like, "What?" I was like, that was like
the
the
record
most.
scratch off of the record.
That was like the most
What?
bizarre thing. I was like, "Why would you even say that?" Like it was so random. I was like, "Yeah, whatever." At that time I was not even dating.
And then one time she tells her mom, I'm going out with this guy, but he's Mzungu.
Mzungu means white.
Mzungu is, yeah.
Hmm.
And what did she say?
She was like, "Hallelujah, praise Jesus."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
was,
she's like saying stuff like, "Oh, the
beautiful
beautiful blue
blue
eyes."
eyes.
Oh, and it just goes on and on. I'm like, what? That's so
Yeah,
okay.
that's funny.
Yeah, her mom is great though. I have so much respect for her mom. All that she's worked for in the church. She works very hard. She's wonderful lady. We're blessed to have her, and I pray for her often.
Yeah.
Very, very. It was fun though to think that her mom was like, "Wow," and it's a culture shock because okay, so her tribe, they're very particular with how the process goes with the marriage, the beginning of it, the introduction, the the proposal, the acceptance of the proposal by the parents. By the way, it's not like typically like here where we're like, I propose, we get married, let's go get married, and it's between me and her. There, it's like a family affair. There's all these steps, and we didn't get all of them done in the right order, and we couldn't even. Some of them were not. We couldn't. And part of this, Kenya is not really close to Washington State.
It's not, yeah.
It's a long
and I mean,
flight.
those of you who
Long
might
flights.
be aware with the tradition, maybe we could talk about this on another video
Another
because
time,
it's
we'll-
like gonna be so
yeah.
long.
It's complex, but I think it's
yeah.
beautiful in some ways. It's really it's neat because you get to see that the family loves the bride, and they will fight for her and argue with the groom in all kinds of ways
Yeah.
to make sure he feels unwelcome until they see that as unwelcome as he may feel, he's still determined. And I think that's a great way to check a guy, see if he's serious. And yeah, I was serious. I was like, yeah, you all can talk about that, but we're getting married, so we can talk more later
Yeah.
about
this. Look.
I'm seeing all these people coming in.
Yeah, that's
I love you guys.
Your cousin.
Oh yeah.
Elizabeth. Yeah. Hi.
Good to see you.
Say hi to him. We miss him.
Hi, y'all. Yeah, we do. We love you guys. We miss you. Almost. Yeah.
So
soon.
Anyway, it's been already like 31 minutes.
Yeah.
Did not expect it to be this long. But I think that's pretty much that's how we met.
Yeah. Can we say the name of that organization, or is it not allowed?
I don't think there's anything wrong because it's not
it's a place very well known in the Northwest. They do a lot of help to many people that are in need. I still love them, still support them, and hope to do more and see them continue to expand the great ministry they are. It's called
the Union Gospel Mission. Yeah.
And so, give them a shout out. Love you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that work. It really means something. And I know to a lot of guys that I've seen personally transformed by learning that the actuality of God's presence in their life. And oftentimes it's the one thing that's missing. And, your life can fall apart if you're not building on the right foundation.
That's true.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Need some Jesus in there. He loves you. Talk to him.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you to Elizabeth.
Yes.
Sequoia and whoever else logged in during that whole live video. Please let us know what would you like to see more of. Do you want more live videos like this or like the other things?
Or
the other
racing.
kind of racing?
Or, sports.
Yeah.
Guy stuff. I'm down. I will, I got
let us
video
know
ideas too. Let us know.
What kind of things you want to see so that we are not like boring you guys. But thank you for joining in. See you next time. We have another video coming up. But see you until then.
Peace.
Ta-ta. Yeah.
Bye.
By the way, we are usually goofy like this. Don't be
comedy relief is the best medicine.
Yeah.
Laughter. Get some.
All right, bye guys.